Hi, I'm Elaine Brewster. Welcome to Aspects of Energy, a forum where we talk about ways to raise our energy. We did a lot of energy work. Those of you who have read my book, Scott's Choice, know that that was a real and an integral part of his healing process, his spiritual, mental healing process. And so even after he died, I continued to do healing work. And I was advised to do it through the Institute of Healing Arts, which was founded by Pam Robinson. I have achieved some wonderful, wonderful results using that. And so I wanted to bring Pam here today to tell us about herself and how she got started and about her institute. So Pam, I will turn it to you.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for all of you that are here with us in present time, and those that will be hearing this afterwards. Please know that our hearts are with all of you. I appreciate Elaine's work that she's doing and getting a message out about how important energy work can help us not only with our physical body, but our emotional and mental states as well. And I'm just going to share a little bit about my personal history and a little bit about my story. When I first found this particular technique, I was a young mother of 5 children. I was experiencing some postpartum depression after my 5th baby. She was about 8 months old, and I wasn't really bouncing back like I had with some of the others. And I was experiencing some depression. This was in the early 90s. And my mom kept suggesting that I go and see a gentleman that did some muscle testing that could identify where I might be blocked emotionally and where some of the depression might be coming from. And he identified an age of 13 months old. And at the time, I really had no idea that our past traumas and our past experiences can contribute to feelings of anger or depression or despair or helplessness or overwhelmment. And so as we went to 13 months old, I actually remembered that I had been in a car accident at exactly 13 months old, that I'd had 110 stitches put in my face, and that I had a lot of unresolved feelings and emotions wrapped around that trauma. And as we kind of leaned into what that little baby might have been going through at that time, I had tears streaming down my face. And he asked me, he said, "Who would the little baby be mad at?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm pretty mad at God. And I don't know if we're supposed to be mad at God. I don't know if we can be mad at God, but I'm pretty mad at whoever's in charge who didn't protect that baby from that accident and from having to go through all that." And so he let me talk to God in this little session. I had my eyes closed. I was just sitting across from him. And I just told God how I felt about it. And then he asked me to imagine some of the heaviness of the anger that I'd been holding in my heart all those years, and imagine it coming out and going into a shape and a color. And it went into a black triangle. And everything, all the shapes and colors that came out that day were pretty much black. There was a lot of sadness. There was some more anger. And then he said, "Well, what did the little baby decide about herself? Because she's been in that car accident." And I said, "Well, I've decided that I'm ugly, that I'm repulsive, that people wouldn't want to look upon me, that somehow I'm broken." And so as he talked to me about that, and I didn't realize how deep these feelings were, how deep they ran in my core being. He said, "But would you like to stop doing ugly?" And I said, "I don't think we can. I have scars on my face. People ask me about them sometimes. When I look in the mirror, that's all I see." And he said, "Oh no, there is a way that we might not really be able to make it so the accident didn't happen, but we can surely help that 13-month-old work through the feelings and the beliefs that she's made about herself because of the accident." And in that moment in time, I had to think about it for a minute because I thought that I knew how to do ugly pretty well. I thought that I was kind of a professional. I knew how to be a wallflower. I knew how not to do my makeup or how to show up and be in front of people. And I had to think about what it would be like if I let that go. It was actually my comfort zone. It was actually what I was clinging to. And then I thought about it on the other side and how much love I had in my heart and how much I really desired to connect to people and how I couldn't because these belief systems were in the way. And so in that moment in time, I said, I didn't really know if he knew what he was talking about. I didn't really know if there was really a way. I just knew inside that if I could let go of it, I wanted to.
Wow.
So he asked me to imagine all the energy wrapped around the belief that I am ugly, and he invited me to move that into a shape and a color outside of me. And it went again into another black shape. And as that lifted, something cleared in my heart, and it opened up a space for me to reflect back on that experience and see it differently. I was able to recognize in that moment in time that that you can be in a car accident for 100 and have 110 stitches in your face and still be beautiful.
Mm.
See, the little baby she couldn't talk when it happened. She didn't have a way to really work through it. She didn't know that the body had capacity to heal, that after being in surgery for 4 hours and the doctor putting everything back together, that my body would be able to heal. The scars, the only scars that needed to be healed were the scars in my heart about what I had concluded about myself based on that experience. And so this process opened up possibilities for me to not only continue to do more work in my internal world, but also at the end of that session, I sat across from him with tears streaming down my face saying, I want to learn how to do what you did. I studied with him for 3 years. I came to understand the process. And what I really discovered is that the knowledge of the process somehow lived in me and was innately in me in such a way that I started to teach people about this process. It's called integrative processing technique. And I've developed a school called Institute of Healing Arts that actually helps practitioners certify in this particular modality. And Elaine, I do have a question because how long is this podcast? I
Um,
didn't ever quite get how
oh,
long it
yeah.
was, and I don't want to overspeak or spend
No,
too much time
you're
talking.
fine. It's theoretically a half hour, but that
Okay.
means that the average is 40 minutes and sometimes it goes an hour. I mean, if people need to
Oh,
get off, they're going to get off, but we just
okay.
kind of let it go the way it goes.
All right. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding really how much time we have and how much to share.
This is
Um,
absolutely fascinating, Pam.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for listening. And what I came to understand and on that day is that my life changed, my world changed because my paradigm changed.
Mhm.
And because I was now operating from a place of truth and understanding that I really am beautiful, that even though my husband loves me, that I can love myself. And that opened up doors for healing in fantastic ways. The other three things that I learned shortly after that was that the process has power to change behavior. The process has power to heal the body, and the process has power to change relationships. And so I'm going to give you 3 short examples of what I learned. I've been researching this process now for 26 years. That daughter is now 26 years old. And and I've been wanting to find out what it can do and what it can't do. And I know that not all there's not one modality that can do everything. We need a combination in the alternative realm for many different modalities to reach the body and reach the mind and the heart in different ways and at different times in our lives. But for me, at that time, I learned that the process has power to change behavior. And I'm just going to share with you that I personally, at the time, had a swearing problem. I had my two favorite words. I really didn't learn how to swear until I had children. They happened to be the same words that my mom used. I'm the oldest of 8 children, and it was getting really bad because my 3-year-old was starting to say those same swear words. And my husband knew it was me because he doesn't really use those words. And had been trying so hard to stop. But I have to tell you that the day after the process, on a Thursday morning, the process that I had was on a Wednesday. On a Thursday morning, it was time for the kids to go to school. The baby had been up in the night. I had bed hair. I was in my pajamas. I was worried about them missing the bus. And I don't know why we think that yelling at them or swearing at them is going to make them go any faster, because it doesn't. But I ended up feeling the pressure building inside of me, and I went to swear, and those words, I could hear them way far back in my head, but they didn't come out of my mouth. And later I learned that if you have unresolved anger towards God and you direct it towards God at the age of origination, that you are less likely to have swearing problems.
Mm.
And I didn't understand that before, but it had happened in that process the day before. In fact, that was the only thing that had changed in my life in those 24 hours. And I had more control over my language, over my response, over my reactions with my children. And productive anger release in ways that where you can release the anger that's in a safe way that doesn't hurt you or somebody else, can move us into a place that I call freedom, emotional freedom, where we actually have power over our automated response system of our behaviors. And so this is just a little example of how the process has power to change behavior. The process also has power to change or to heal the body. Now, because I had been in a car accident, I had my responses were all very immature. I was responding to life from a 13-month-old as if everything were a life and death situation. I started to grow emotionally and be more mature in my responses with my children as I continued to do my work. And then, the accident, by the time I was 7 years old, my mom was managing pain. I was having headaches, stomach aches, leg aches, jaw pain. I was having facial pain. I was having leg aches. And so I was going to different chiropractors in different places to try to feel better. I was sleeping on funny pillows. I was trying all kinds of things. After I started doing this work, my physical pain started to dissipate. My neck didn't hurt as much. My shoulders didn't hurt. My jaw, the TMJ problems were a lot better. My stomach aches were going away. I feel much better in my adulthood and later years than I did as a child. And so the process has power to heal the body. Once those pain receptors or pain synapses in the brain are worked with on an emotional level, the body can then move into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where we relax. It's where we return to a place of peace and safety. We're not so wired around the trauma in a life and death situation that keeps the pain alive, that causes us to feel so uncomfortable. And so listening to the body, understanding where pain has been stored, working through it, and then being free of it is why I'm so committed to this particular modality. The third thing that I've been researching and that I've come to understand, not only with my own personal stories, but with others, is that the body has, the process has power to heal relationships. I'm going to explain just a little bit about what I mean with that. A few years as I had gotten into this work and I started seeing clients, I I was somehow upset in the kitchen, and I can't remember what it was about, and recognized, and it wasn't really a really upset mom anymore, but I was upset. And my son, who was 14 at the time, who's 6'3", who's, you know, um, a darling, darling boy, my only son, he paid me the biggest compliment that anybody's ever paid me. I was kind of upset, and he said, Mom, well, he started laughing. And when the mom's upset, that's not when the son should be laughing, right? We don't like,
Hello.
that's just not the appropriate time. And he kept on laughing. And finally I said to him, Michael, why are you laughing at me? And he said, Mom, you haven't been angry for so long. I forgot how funny you looked when you're mad. And I have to say that I had to stop and hear what he was saying. He was saying, Mom, you haven't been angry for so long that I forgot how funny you looked. And I have to tell you, the relationship with my children, the relationship with my husband changed dramatically over several months and a few years worth of time, where I was responding to their needs and our communication from such a more mature place. And so the process has power to change relationships. I'm just sucking on a mint because I start losing my voice when I talk so long. But I ended up recognizing that generational patterns were changing. My mom didn't know another way. It's the same pattern that her mom modeled to her, that her mom, my great grandmother, modeled to her. It had been passed down. And to see that I was having power and influence over and control over my own responses was so liberating. It brought so much freedom. And now my daughters and my son and even my grandchildren now have had change in our parenting patterns that's made a difference, so that those that come after us will not be bound by automated systems that aren't really working. And that I believe that we can be the generation that can make those changes in our family patterns, because the process does have power to change relationships and heal generational broken systems. Now, with the muscle testing, let me explain why this process is unique and what sets it apart from other modalities. Some of the key components is our ability to use the muscle testing and use the intelligence of the body to find the age of origination. The age of decision is what we call it, when those decisions were made. And in all honesty, we need to go back to the age of origination, the age of decision, in order to delete old programs and to actually upgrade to new systems. And that is what happens in the process. So because of the muscle testing, we are working with the body. We are also having the body take the lead and help us to know where it wants to start. And it is so miraculous. It's so amazing to sit in my office and do sessions every day and have the person that I'm working with have their body reveal what the next step is for their healing and where we need to focus. It accelerates the healing. And then another thing that the process offers is opportunity to speak out feelings, to work through those heavy feelings, to release those through shapes and colors, which is called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and not leading with that modality, but using it in a combination of many modalities. That's what makes the process so powerful. Also, we speak to the person or speak about our issues, and we also work to have a productive anger release, where past and stored anger that gets stored in the liver or in the thyroid, or in different parts of the body, in the small intestine, of the large intestine, we can start to release some of that. That's called psychoneuroimmunology, which is how thoughts and feelings affect our health. And so we bring that in to this process. And based on the colors, and sometimes the shapes, and sometimes what we're languaging, we can identify where that trapped energy is being stored. If someone says to me, "It's never my turn," I know they have an underactive thyroid. I know it might not show up on any medical tests, but I know that particular phrase is connected to the thyroid. If somebody says, "Nothing ever works for me," I know that they have an underactive pituitary gland, where they might have issues wrapped around faith and faithlessness. If someone says, "I know it all and you can't teach me anything," I know that they have lung issues, abandonment issues, heart chakra issues, based on just what they're revealing with their words. So in the school that we have that's up and running, that's called Institute of Healing Arts, and if you want to check out our website, it's ihaofutah.com. And we offer 3 levels of certification where you could actually learn this particular modality and really study in depth psychoneuroimmunology, muscle testing, NLP, the meaning of shapes and colors, and how to do all the steps of the process. And you could use this for yourself or friends and family, or become certified as a facilitator, depending on how much you want to put into your studies. So then moving forward with that, we also teach and use scripting, which is what Carol Truman uses in her book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And we also use role play, which is how we work to bring in the person or persons that are involved and see them in their white light form and have them take accountability and bring it to closure as much as we can in that one session. So it's a very powerful process. It's 4 steps. It's simple in the approach to it, and for those that have had lots of practice, and yet there are still some complexities that need to be taught and mastered so that the process can flow and work the way that it's supposed to. I think in sharing this information, there's maybe just a little bit more that I'd like to share. And then I would like to open it up to some question and answers, if that's okay.
Wonderful.
But there is a man by the name of, oh goodness, I just barely thought of it, and then it just slipped my mind. But anyway, it'll come back in just a sec. But he developed a scale of vibrations. He discovered it where each emotion is connected to a certain frequency or a wavelength.
Well, Bruce
And his name
is one that
his
did
name is
that.
David Hawkins.
Okay.
David Hawkins is his name. He's an MD and a PhD. Anyway, that's the one that I'm familiar with. He wrote the book Power versus Force. He identified different levels of consciousness. His books are really deep. He is a wonderful resource for those that are in this field. And he identified that there is a scale from 0 to 1,000 where emotions, again, have certain vibrations. Now, shame is the lowest vibrating or the lowest calibrating emotion that we carry with us. And we carry it in our body, in our gut, on our face, around our wrists, and around our ankles as shackles. And shame and patterns of shame that have been passed on can be released when we understand those patterns and recognizing that it only calibrates at 20. Guilt calibrates at 30. Apathy calibrates at 50. Sadness calibrates at 75. Fear calibrates at 100. Anger calibrates at 150. Pride calibrates at 175. Courage calibrates at 200. Willingness calibrates at 310. So even my little bit of willingness to let go of doing ugly moved me up the calibration chart so that I could release the heaviness and work through it. Love calibrates at 500. Joy calibrates at 540. Gratitude calibrates at 770. Enlightenment and truth calibrate at 1000. So when you think about it, we really just live in a spectrum of light. And even the heavy feelings are really just slower moving vibrations or frequencies. And enlightenment and truth are faster vibrating particles of light. And that the heavier emotions are all good. They're all good. The heavier emotions are just indicators, helping us to know that maybe we need our oil changed. Maybe we need some work done. Maybe our paradigm isn't working. Maybe our belief systems that we're operating from need some attunement, an opportunity to attune to truth. And at the school, we teach that all emotions are of value and are helpful and are good. And then just one other thing that I want to add to this is around the year 2007, I was visited by an educational psychologist, a professor from Brigham Young University, who came to visit our school and wanted to find out what it was we were doing here and if there was a possibility of bringing what we're doing to Brigham Young University. And in our many, many hours of discussion and talks, at one point he said, by the way, BYU has just invented a machine that registers the vibration or the calibration of emotions that a person might be experiencing or might be their core resting place, their baseline with their emotions. And while he was talking, I was curious and I thought, I wonder if that matches the scale of David Hawkins. And so because David Hawkins proposes that this is a universal truth. He actually did his research in a large stadium with thousands of people who knew muscle testing, and they all tested and validated. This is how he did his research. They all muscle tested and validated that same calibration chart. So I was wondering if it matched what this gentleman was talking to me about. And he said that you just put your hand on a hand plate and that it measures a certain emotion that matches a number. And as I was testing, I just want you to know that I had 999 possibilities of being wrong. And that I tested the exact number that he had tested on that hand plate. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this forward is that gathering information through muscle testing intuitively can be very accurate. And so can gathering information from technology can be very accurate. But I'm proposing that, that as we lean into honing in our intuitive skills and our spiritual and energetic strengths and gifts, that can actually be of benefit in helping any of us in working through health issues or in identifying what is our next step and what is our next modality that we need to move into as far as getting support or help. And so I just, I'm thinking that as I present this, when we teach at the school, we work to integrate the intuition with the intellect, the left brain with the right brain, or the right brain with the left brain, the male and female. We work to integrate all parts of us and all ages of us so that we can continue to heal emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Because healing is a whole body experience. Energy work is a whole body experience. And when we've been in trauma, we separate out into disassociative states where we're kind of disconnected and the body's storing the memories. And we try to move forward the way we're supposed to and cope the best we can until we can circle back around and heal those traumas and come back to unification, and where we can come back to integration. And that's what wholeness is being fully integrated. That's what healing is from my perspective, reconnecting. Now, I would just like to ask if any of you have any questions or ahas or insights or comments with anything that I've shared so far.
Go ahead and just unmute yourself. I can see all these thinking minds out there, and every single person is thinking their own thoughts. Sandra, what are you thinking?
I think I'll listen to Hattie Jane. Who's ready to speak.
Oh, we would anyway. Yes, because many of us are representatives of a company that deals with very gentle, stable magnetic fields. And we've had some interesting physical responses. And one of the aspects of the integration that you're speaking of is that when I became aware that there was a certain placement of it that facilitated my ability to not react to my allergens, which were causing me a lot of sneezing and wheezing, and just comfortable breathing in general. On my way to a appointment to deal with something that might be irritating, and I might be just exposed to the environment of different things, I place a magnet in a particular place just because of respiratory. But what was really interesting and still gives me great chills is that my sense of anger and feeling like a chip on my shoulder, just irritated, feeling like, and so I'd be quickly responsive, and that's been all my life that I was aware of, and it went away that day. And it's still possible to be there, but again, my application of what I do gives me a choice of do I want to be that reactive emotionally. And it was a big surprise that emotionally I had a little key to open that door to figure out whether or not I want to go through it.
Interesting.
Wow, that's amazing. And the interesting thing about all this is hopefully I'm still here. Yes, my internet's just a little bit
You froze a little moment.
All right. The interesting thing, I know. The interesting thing is that every single physical response that we feel is linked to an emotional component. And it is most interesting to see how some of that correlates and relates to us. And I think that's amazing that you use magnets to try to help with that. I think that's fantastic.
Well, that was the thing. I wasn't using it to help with the problem I was using it for. It was a physical problem I was using it for. But the fact that the mental clicked in there, it was like, And again, why I'm so dedicated to our particular line, because it is an entryway to our bodies that we weren't aware of. And just think about if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling pain, or if you're feeling upset because somebody's disappointed you, or you disappointed yourself, and then how you react, you react to people around that time. That might get set in ways, and then you have a pattern. But going into psych and thinking about it didn't work.
Right. And again, identifying those patterns, though, when you become aware of them, you actually have greater capacity to start to make change.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And it's helpful to have somebody help you work through those patterns or what's coming forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm.
But you can do some of it on your own too.
Well, this is where if we had like many children that we've had with our product line or families,
Right.
they've noticed that a child, a very young child, maybe 5 years old, went and relaxed on one of the products when they were having some upset things with their siblings, and then they went back to play with their siblings and were more relaxed. So it's like, okay, that young and that powerful. Well, we'll just think about those patterns ongoing and what life would have been different. I might have even gotten married. Oh, well.
Right. That's amazing. I love that. And I'm sure many of you have been on healing paths and have actually knowledge and understanding about what works for you as well. Because we're always the student. We're always learning. And we're learning from each other, from our environment, from those that have gone before us, and those that have learned about energy work. You know, with Elaine's book that she wrote and the journey that she's been on with her husband, I too was on a journey with my daughter who was diagnosed with a brain tumor at age 14.
Ah,
She was my second daughter. And you might want to, if you have time, I'll share a little bit of this story with that. But we have,
go ahead.
some might have to mute their screen so that it's not echoing. Yeah. So, so anyway, just really quickly, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She did have surgery when she was 14. We were told that it had a 0 to 1% chance of returning. About 18 months later, it did return. The diagnosis got changed, and it got changed to an ependymoma. And at that time, we didn't do any traditional therapies at that time. We were doing a lot of energy work and a lot of natural approaches, and they weren't really, chemo doesn't work on that particular brain tumor anyway, which I was grateful for. And then, so they did surgery again. We were just doing a wait and watch kind of a thing. And then that was when she was 16. And then when she was 18, it came back again. So at that time we did do radiation. And then she was in a place where she could go to BYU. She ended up graduating from college. She got married. She didn't have any children, but at 25, the symptoms started to return. And we discovered that she had really small tumors attached to her nervous system down her spine. And it had spread. And there really wasn't anything else they could do. They did a little bit more radiation. And I've really never witnessed anyone going through so much suffering. And as a mother watching that, I was literally going through so much at the time that if I hadn't had the process and the techniques that I have, I really don't know where I would be, because not only were they helping her, and at night she wouldn't be able to sleep, and she'd say, "Mom, would you lay by me? Would you process me?" And so there were ways that we could work with her in her body through what she was going through with this particular process and this particular technique. And then, and she'd be able to fall asleep, and her discomfort would be lessened. And then, but her 10-year anniversary is just in next week. Well, it's on the 24th. And so this time of year is just a little bit hard for me. But I'm so grateful for the process, because I've been able to use it many times to work through the loss and the grief that I experienced with losing my daughter. And I'm really grateful that Elaine, knowing that she's gone through maybe something similar with her husband, has found the courage to share her story and what her husband's story was, and with others, because many of us, all of us, have been affected with by someone who has experienced cancer. It's something that we can't really be exempt from, and that journey that brings lots of lessons and learning for the family, and lots of healing, and then just knowing that this daughter loved processing, and knowing that on the other side of the veil, I've been able to feel her presence in many of my sessions as she has stood by me and helped facilitate and helped me to have inspiration as to know how to serve the people that I'm working with. I have felt her presence many, many times, and just grateful for those that come to our aid and to our side that are on the other side of the veil. And I just want to acknowledge their presence in all forms of healing, in all forms of energy work, because I feel like that they are helping us and supporting us from the other side. So I appreciated the comments that have been brought forward. Does anybody else have anything that you would like to share or to add to what we've been talking about?
Well, not lest we take a completely other direction, and I won't let us go that far, but there are one of the things, well, you know that the book is called Scott's Choice, and that Heavenly
Yes.
Father gave him a choice. I thought that it was the choice of his treatment, because he asked me, find me treatment. Okay, well, that's not working. Find me another one. And he said he wanted to live. And so since Heavenly Father said, Scott will make a choice. Once chosen, it will be irrevocable. And he said he wanted to live. So 1 + 1 is 2, right? Hello. He's going to live. I'm just supposed to help him to get there. And so anyway, in the book, almost everything in the book, just like a good musical program where you have something in the first half and then you have it again in the second half. Almost everything that's worthwhile is done at least 2 times so that you can see some different sides. So there's a story in there of a girl who is 18 and she was given the choice and she decided to die. And then there's a story of my 32-year-old singing teacher who at that time, when she told the story, was 79 and she had died at 32. I believe she ended up dying when she was 90. But anyway, the girl who decided to die, and her mother later corroborated this story with me. Her comment, well, the mother had energy workers because the mother was an energy worker like Pam. And so the mother contacted some other people and said, would you pray for my daughter? So then this daughter came in sleep to each one of those people, in their dreams and said, don't pray for me to die. I mean, do pray for me to die. Don't pray for me to live, because I have found there's so much more that I can do on this side. And, and I'm sorry, I don't get that, because I am here on the earth and I want to be on the earth. And I know that probably for all of us who are here on the earth, we want our loved ones to be here on the earth with us. And like I said in the last chapter of the book, which is my favorite chapter, that just isn't in God's ecology. He just can't have us all here. And it doesn't matter, because through Jesus, we will all be resurrected. All. It's a given. And so, it doesn't matter whether someone dies at 1 or 10 or 100, because they're going to be resurrected. But what happens, what matters is our heart.
I agree. And Elaine, thank you for sharing. And I knew that this would be a little raw for both of us, having lost loved ones. And I'm sure there's many others here in joining us in this podcast that have lost loved ones. But at the time, it seemed that windows were opening for solutions, because she was sick for over 11 years and windows were opening until we reached a point where no more windows were opening. And it seems like we were moved into this space where death occurs, into that spirit of death, where there were no more options. And then at that time, as a mother, I realized that death was the solution.
Hmm.
That was the answer, that was where she needed to go and that I needed to release her.
Right.
And when I did that the night before she passed, there was a letting go and there was a release, and she was able to move forward. And my need to cling to her and try to control the outcome of what, as to what I thought was needed or what I wanted, wasn't what she needed. And then just recognizing that opportunity to go through that with her was tender and very, very beautiful and very difficult, but something that if my heart can get through that, it can get through anything.
Mm.
And the thing is that making that conscious choice that I didn't want to become embittered or angry or resentful. I wanted my heart to be worked with through this situation so that it would be even more compassionate and more pure and more resilient. And so just really being able to harvest the growth that comes through adversity is what our integrative process is about. We call it harvesting the gold, harvesting the lessons, harvesting the wisdom. So when the mind can understand that there's been purpose in the suffering, it is more likely to let go of the suffering. I'm going to say that one more time. When the mind understands that there's been purpose in the suffering, that there's been growth, there's been purpose, there was a reason, there was divine intervention with that, and it starts to wrap its mind around it, and it can start to accept that, it is more likely to let go of the pain of the loss and the grief and the suffering. So I just thought I'd share that last part with you. And then just in this last quote, the illiterate of our time will not be those who cannot read and write, but rather those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's what we do with life on a daily basis, is we've learned something and thought that this is the way it's supposed to be. Then we have to unlearn it. We're the school of unlearning. And then we get to relearn it in its truer form, in its elevated form. And that's what life is about. And so I just wanted to share that in closing. And then just, I don't know if there's any other questions or comments.
So lovely. Yeah, from Alvin Toffler.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. What a wonderful way to end up. I have never really thought in terms of harvesting this work that we're doing and letting go and trying to feel better physically and spiritually, mentally, emotionally. That's lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Check us out on our website. I've written a few books. The Bright Red Bow. It tells my story and it has all the steps of the process in it, and you can order it online.
The Bright
and there's
Red Bow.
Bright Red Bow.
Mhm.
And then also there's another one called Emotional Liberty, which is some case studies of how the process has helped people. And then I have some other products that are there online that you can check out. Some for children, some for one called Emotional Superpowers for children. And that's available as well. There's 14 superpowers that with stories and activities and workbook pages that are a great gift. Yeah, for children and
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well,
So
thank you.
Institute of Healing Arts, and this has been Pam Robinson today. Thank you
Right.
for sharing time with us, and thank all of you so much. And we will see you. I'm going to send out an email of some specific programs that in the next 4 weeks you may want to look back on, because I will be in Scotland and England, and I will be thinking of you very happily And like Hattie Jane said, Elaine, you know there's internet in Europe. And I know there is, but I'm ignoring it.
All right. Have fun on your trip.
Much and goodbye from Bear Lake.